Up until that moment, my life had been steady and predictable, with no indication of the storm that was about to hit. That evening, I got home earlier than usual. The air outside was heavy and damp, a clear sign that a storm was brewing. As I stepped inside, the silence hit me. It wasn't the comfortable quiet of a home at peace. It was unnatural, almost suffocating. Most nights, Rachel would be bustling around, the TV playing in the background, her voice filling the space with her pointless chatter. But tonight, nothing, just dead silence. After a long, exhausting day of meetings, deadlines, and frustration, all I wanted was a cold beer and a moment to myself before Rachel inevitably started droning on about her trivial daily nonsense. Yet something in the air felt wrong. At first, I couldn't put my finger on it, just an unsettling weight pressing down on me. No sounds from the kitchen, no footsteps hurrying to greet me, no half-hearted, insincere "how was your day?" from my wife. My gut tightened. Without fully knowing why, I found myself walking toward the stairs. Some instinct inside me, sharper than logic, pushed me forward. My steps slowed as I reached the top. Every part of me tensed with something I couldn't yet name. Then I heard it. A sound, muffled but clear, a low groan. I stopped, my breath catching in my throat. My mind rebelled, unwilling to accept what my gut already knew. Another moan, louder this time. Movement. The sound was coming from our bedroom. I moved forward, careful, silent. The door was cracked open just enough for me to see the mirror on the wall inside. And that's when I saw them. Rachel, tangled beneath him, her face flushed, lost in the moment. And him, Stanley, my best friend. The man who had stood beside me at my wedding, raised his glass in a toast to our future. The man I had trusted for years. He was pressed against her, his body moving over hers like he had every right to be there. The betrayal struck hard, like a fist to my stomach. My breath caught. My mind raced, but my body was frozen, unable to look away. Rage surged through me, a raw, burning thing. My fists clenched, my nails digging into my palms. Every part of me screamed to kick the door open, drag him off her, make them suffer for this. I wanted to see Stanley's face smash against the floor, wanted to hear Rachel's pathetic excuses, wanted to watch her squirm and beg. But I didn't move. Not yet. I refused to give them the satisfaction of knowing they had broken me. Instead, I took a step back, then another. My breathing slowed, my heartbeat steadying. The fury was still there, but beneath it, something colder had formed, purpose. I turned and walked away, each step down the stairs deliberate. I didn't slam the door behind me. I didn't make a sound. Outside, the sky had darkened, the first drops of rain falling against my skin, but I barely felt them. I reached my car and leaned against it, my mind running through the image burned into my brain. Rachel's flushed face, Stanley's hands on her, the way they moved like I didn't exist. That kind of betrayal doesn't just hurt, it destroys. But I wasn't going to lose control. No, let them think they had gotten away with it. Let Rachel keep playing the devoted wife. Let Stanley keep pretending he was still my friend. They thought they were being clever, sneaking around behind my back. But they had no idea what was coming. A plan took shape in my mind, sharp and clear. I wasn't just going to confront them, I was going to dismantle them. Piece by piece, I would strip away everything they valued, take everything they held dear. And the best part? They wouldn't even see it coming. By the time they realized what I had done, it would be far too late. And Stanley? He had no idea how personal this was about to get. I knew exactly how to hit Stanley where it hurt the most. He had taken what was mine without a second thought, so it was only fair that I did the same to him. But I wouldn't just steal his wife. I'd make her want to leave him. I wouldn't settle for a cheap affair like the one he had with Rachel. No, my revenge would be deeper, more permanent. I would make Carmen mine. This wasn't about lust. It was about power, control, making Stanley feel the same gut-wrenching pain he had inflicted on me. But unlike him, I wouldn't act on impulse. I wouldn't throw everything away for a few stolen moments in a darkened room. No, I would dismantle his world piece by piece, savoring every step of his downfall. I started the car, the engine roaring to life as the rain pounded against the windshield. My fingers tightened on the wheel for a moment before I let out a slow breath, a cold smirk creeping onto my face. This wasn't the end of my marriage. It was the beginning of their destruction, and I would enjoy every second of it. That night, I drove with no real destination, letting the rhythm of the rain match the storm inside me. The fury I had felt when I first saw them together hadn't faded. It had transformed. No longer blinding, no longer reckless. Now it was sharp, precise, like the edge of a knife. Revenge wasn't something you rushed into. It had to be planned, executed flawlessly. There could be no room for mistakes, no reckless outbursts. Stanley and Rachel had been sloppy. That was their weakness. I would not make the same mistake. Stanley had to be my starting point. I pulled into a dimly lit parking lot, letting the car idle as my thoughts sharpened into a clear plan. Stanley always carried himself with that smug, arrogant confidence. He took what he wanted without fear of consequences. He thought he had one, that I was too weak to fight back. But what he didn't realize was how well I knew him. His habits, his weaknesses, his fears, and more importantly, his wife, Carmen. Carmen was the key. Stanley had built his entire identity around his perfect little family, the big house in the suburbs, the carefully curated image of a devoted husband, the picture-perfect life he paraded around like a prize. He loved flaunting his accomplishments, feeding off the admiration of others. But I saw through the facade. I knew the cracks in his perfect world. And nothing would shatter it faster than Carmen realizing the truth about the man she married. This wasn't going to be a meaningless affair. I wasn't just going to sleep with Carmen and rub it in Stanley's face. That would be too easy, too shallow. No, I needed to do more. I needed to make her choose me over him. I wanted her to doubt him, to see every flaw she had ignored for years. I wanted her to crave something more, something only I could give her. And when the time was right, when she was completely in my grasp, I would make sure Stanley saw it all. He would watch as his perfect wife willingly left him, as she fell for me, believing I was the better man. And when he finally realized what had happened, it would be too late. His life, his marriage, his pride, it would all be gone. What made it even more satisfying was how easy this would be. Carmen wasn't like Rachel. She wasn't loud, selfish, or careless. She was softer, more reserved, thoughtful in a way Stanley never seemed to appreciate. To him, she was just another prize, someone to stand beside him, smile for photos, and make him look good. But I saw her. I knew her insecurities, her fears, the quiet loneliness she tried to hide. Stanley had spent years neglecting her, taking her for granted. That was his mistake, and I was going to use it against him. I had seen the cracks in their marriage long before any of this happened. Carmen had been vulnerable for years, and now, finally, I was ready to use that to my advantage. I glanced at my phone, debating whether tonight was the right moment to make my first move. But no, patience was everything. This had to be perfect. So instead, I drove home, slipping seamlessly back into my role as the unsuspecting husband. Rachel had no idea I knew about her betrayal, and that ignorance was my greatest weapon. As I stepped inside, I heard her humming softly upstairs, probably getting ready for bed. That sound, once familiar, now felt like a taunt. I walked into the kitchen, grabbed a drink, and listened as she made her way downstairs. She was wearing one of my old t-shirts. The ones she used to claim were her favorite. What had once felt like a privately gesture now felt like a twisted joke. "You're home late," she said casually, filling up a glass of water as if everything was perfectly normal. The audacity of it, the way she could lie to my face so effortlessly, made my skin crawl. "Yeah," I replied smoothly, "got stuck at work." She came closer, kissed me on the cheek, and said she had missed me. I smiled back, but it was empty, hollow, a mask I had already perfected. "Missed you too," I lied, as easily as breathing. She turned and headed back upstairs, completely oblivious to the fact that the ground beneath her feet was already crumbling. She thought she had everything under control. So did Stanley. They had no idea what was coming. The next day, I set my plan in motion. I sent Carmen a message, casual and friendly, nothing that would raise suspicion. We had known each other for years, after all. A simple check-in, asking how she was doing, maybe suggesting we catch up sometime. Her reply came almost instantly. Too fast. It was clear she needed a distraction, something to pull her away from the miserable life Stanley had built for her. Within days, we had plans to meet for coffee. Nothing suspicious, just an old friend catching up. But this time, it wasn't a friendly visit. This was a carefully placed step in my plan, and Carmen had no idea she was walking straight into it. We met at a quiet cafe, the kind of place where no one paid attention to the people around them. Carmen looked exhausted. The years had worn her down, the weight of her life with Stanley etched into her face. She smiled when she saw me, but it was the kind of smile that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Thanks for meeting me," I said, keeping my tone warm, light. "It's been a while." "Yeah, it has," she sighed. Her voice was tired, carrying the weight of things left unsaid. "Things have been busy." She didn't need to explain. I already knew exactly what she meant. Stanley wasn't the perfect husband everyone believed him to be. I just needed her to admit it out loud. So, I steered the conversation in just the right direction, asking about her art, listening carefully to every word, every hesitation. The cracks were already there. I just had to widen them. And then, she finally said what I had been waiting for. "I've been struggling with everything lately," she admitted, staring down at the table. "It's like Stanley and I are drifting. We're not connecting anymore." I leaned in slightly, lowering my voice just enough to sound sincere. "I'm really sorry to hear that, Carmen. You deserve better." Her eyes flickered to mine, searching, needing something validation, understanding. And I gave it to her. "You've always been such a good friend," she said softly, a hint of relief in her tone. "I don't know what I'd do without people like you." I smiled, warm and reassuring, though every inch of it was calculated. "You're never alone," I said smoothly. "I'm always here for you." She smiled back, but there was sadness in it. A sadness I wanted to nurture, to use. And there it was, that moment, the hesitation, the flicker of doubt creeping into her mind, the realization that maybe, just maybe, the life she thought was secure wasn't as solid as she had believed. Exactly what I wanted. I was planting the seeds of doubt, making her question everything. It had started. As I left the cafe that afternoon, a slow satisfaction settled over me. The pieces were moving into place. Stanley had no idea that the woman he had betrayed me with was about to become the very reason his world would fall apart. I walked to my car as a light drizzle began to fall, the rain whispering against the pavement, a fitting prelude to the storm I was about to unleash. This was only the beginning. The day after my meeting with Carmen, I carried myself as if nothing had changed. But inside, I could feel it, the slow, burning thrill of revenge fully taking root. There was no turning back now. Stanley remained completely unaware, oblivious to the noose tightening around his perfect little life. And Carmen, She had started to look at me differently. It was subtle, just a shift in the way she spoke, the way she lingered a little longer in our conversations. She trusted me now, believed I understood her in ways Stanley never had. And Rachel? She continued playing the devoted wife, completely clueless. She still sent me texts throughout the day, grocery lists, weekend plans, pointless chatter, as if everything was normal, as if she wasn't betraying me behind my back. But soon, she'd understand just how wrong she was. It was a Thursday night, about a week after my coffee with Carmen, when I decided it was time to take the next step. Stanley had mentioned he'd be working late, supposedly buried in some big project. More likely, he was just using that as an excuse for his usual activities. But tonight, I wasn't concerned with Rachel or Stanley. Tonight, my focus was entirely on her. I drove to their house, already armed with the perfect excuse. I wasn't dropping by as a scheming manipulator. I was simply a friend checking in. Carmen had confided in me, spilled her frustrations, her loneliness. I knew she wouldn't turn me away. If anything, she'd appreciate the company. As I pulled up in front of their pristine two-story home, the rain had picked up, turning the pavement into a slick mirror reflecting the streetlights. Through the living room window, I could see the flickering glow of the TV, a cozy, domestic scene playing out behind closed curtains. It almost felt too easy. I knocked on the door, keeping my expression casual, relaxed, just a friendly visit. A moment later, Carmen opened the door. Her surprise was genuine. "Oh, hey," she said, blinking up at me. "I wasn't expecting you." I shrugged, brushing off my damp jacket, offering an easy smile. "Yeah, thought I'd check in. Just happened to be in the neighborhood." A lie, of course. I hadn't been anywhere near her neighborhood, but the way her face softened, the way her lips curved into a small, welcoming smile, told me she didn't care. "Stanley's not home," she said, almost apologetically. "I know," I replied, my voice calm, steady. "I'm here for you." I saw the flicker of uncertainty in her eyes before she masked it with another smile. She stepped aside, letting me in. The house smelled warm and inviting, but there was an underlying emptiness to it, a space left hollow by neglect, by a husband too distracted to appreciate what he had. "Can I get you something to drink?" she asked, her voice light but laced with nervous energy. "Wine would be great," I said, settling onto the couch. She disappeared into the kitchen, and I listened as the cabinet opened, as the clink of glasses and the soft pop of the bottle filled the air. When she returned, she handed me a glass and sat beside me, closer than she normally would have. I turned slightly, angling myself toward her, making sure she felt my presence. "How have you been holding up?" I asked, keeping my voice warm, gentle, filled with just the right amount of concern. Carmen sighed, staring down at her wine glass. "It's been hard," she admitted finally. "Stanley's been so distant lately, and sometimes I feel like," she hesitated, struggling to find the words. "Like he just doesn't care anymore." I nodded, letting the weight of her words settle. "You're not wrong to feel that way," I said, my voice low. "You know how Stanley is. He doesn't always appreciate what he has." She looked up then, her eyes searching mine, desperate for something, understanding, reassurance. And I gave it to her. "You've always been so good to us," she whispered. "I don't know what I'd do without friends like you." I let the silence stretch just enough, let the tension grow thick between us. Then, slowly, deliberately, I reached over and placed my hand on her knee. "You deserve more than this, Carmen," I murmured, my voice steady, deliberate. "You deserve someone who truly sees you." Her breath hitched, but she didn't pull away. She just sat there, staring at me, torn between the loyalty she felt for Stanley and the hunger for something more, something he never gave her. "I don't know what to do," she murmured, her voice fragile, uncertain. I leaned in slightly, just enough to make my intentions clear, but not enough to cross that final line. I do. Her lips parted slightly, her fingers tightening around the stem of her wine glass. She wasn't rejecting me. You deserve better than what Stanley gives you. I continued, my voice low, coaxing. You know that, don't you? Her gaze dropped to my hand, still resting lightly on her knee, her breathing shallow. I shouldn't, she whispered, but I didn't let her finish. I'm not asking for anything, Carmen, I said smoothly. I'm just telling you the truth. She hesitated, caught between fear and desire, between the life she thought she was supposed to have and the one she wanted. And then, finally, slowly, she leaned toward me. Her lips parted, her breath warm against my skin, her eyes fluttering shut, exactly as I had planned. It would have been so easy to let the moment consume us, to push forward and take what was already within reach. But I wasn't going to make that mistake. This wasn't about reckless passion, it was about control, about her coming to me, not the other way around. I leaned back slightly, just enough to create a space between us, watching the emotions flicker across her face, confusion, guilt, longing. She didn't know what had just happened or how to process it, and that was exactly where I wanted her. I should get going, I said, my voice calm, steady. Carmen blinked as if snapping out of a trance. Yeah, maybe that's for the best, she murmured, but there was hesitation in her tone, and unspoken, but I don't want you to leave. I stood, deliberately placing my wine glass on the coffee table, my movements slow, intentional. I let my eyes linger on her, offering a small, knowing smile. We'll talk soon, I said softly. And remember, I'm here for you. As I walked to the door, I could feel her gaze lingering on my back, the weight of what had just happened hanging heavy in the room. She was teetering on the edge, caught between loyalty and temptation. All she needed was a little push, and when the time came, I'd be there to catch her. Outside, the rain had stopped, leaving the air cool and damp, the street lights casting a golden glow over the slick pavement. I paused for a moment, letting the satisfaction sink in. Stanley had stolen Rachel from me, my wife, my life. He had laughed behind my back, confident in his little secret. But now he had no idea that I was dismantling his world piece by piece with the same precision and patience that he had never possessed. He wouldn't just lose Carmen, he would lose everything he held dear. And the best part? He wouldn't see it coming. For now, I was content to wait, to let the tension build, to let the betrayal simmer beneath the surface until it was ready to explode. The following days passed in a careful, practiced calm. I played my role flawlessly. Rachel continued her charade, sending me sweet, empty messages, pretending to be the devoted wife while slipping off to see Stanley. They had grown careless, so confident in their secrecy that they never even noticed the way I watched them. Rachel had convinced herself that I was still in the dark. And that almost made me laugh. Watching her drift through our house so unaware of what was coming was almost entertaining. The cracks in their perfect little fantasy were widening. It wouldn't be long before the illusion shattered completely. In the meantime, I kept Rachel distracted. I showered her with attention, compliments, date nights, thoughtful gestures, just enough to keep her off balance. If she noticed any change in me, she didn't mention it. She was too wrapped up in her affair, too convinced that she was playing the smarter game. But my focus was on Carmen. She was the real target. Since that night in her living room, I could sense the shift in her. She reached out more often, confiding in me, letting me into the corners of her life that Stanley had neglected for years. Each conversation pulled her further away from him. She didn't even realize it. But I was driving a wedge between them, one carefully placed word at a time. And then the perfect opportunity presented itself. Stanley, in his arrogance, had mentioned a work conference he'd be attending out of town. He had proudly told me about it, completely unaware of the gift he had just handed me. With him gone, Carmen would be alone, vulnerable. It was time to take things to the next level. On Friday evening, I sent her a simple message. "How are you holding up? Need some company?" Her reply came almost instantly. "Home alone. A distraction would be nice." Exactly what I wanted. The drive to her house was short, but my pulse remained steady. The rain had cleared, leaving behind a night cool and silent. The streets gleamed under the soft glow of streetlights, carrying a sense of quiet inevitability. Tonight, I would push things further. When Carmen opened the door, she greeted me with a tired smile. "Thanks for coming," she said softly, stepping aside. "It's been a long week." I stepped inside, my gaze lingering on her. She looked exhausted, worn down by neglect, by disappointment, by the weight of a marriage that no longer held anything for her. She looked like someone carrying too much for too long. "I'm always here when you need me," I said, offering her that same reassuring smile, the one she had started to depend on. We settled into the living room, the lights low, the space warm. She poured us both a glass of wine, a casual gesture, but I could feel the energy shift as she handed it to me. I sat close enough for her to feel my presence, but not close enough to scare her. Not yet. At first, we talked about the mundane work, the small details of her day-to-day life. But as the night deepened, so did the conversation. And then, finally, her walls started to crumble. "I just don't know how much longer I can pretend everything is fine," she admitted, her voice barely above a whisper. "Stanley is never around, and when he is, it's like he's already left. I feel like I'm losing him." Her words hung between us, thick with unspoken emotions. This was the moment I had been waiting for, the crack in her armor. I reached over, my hand covering hers. My touch was soft, deliberate. "You haven't lost him, Carmen," I said gently. "But maybe it's time to stop holding on to something that isn't there anymore." She met my gaze, her eyes wide, searching, needing something. Reassurance. Validation. A way out. "I don't know what to do," she whispered. "I've tried so hard to make it work, but I feel so alone." "You're not alone," I murmured, my voice steady, comforting. "I'm here. I've always been here." And then she leaned in. It was hesitant, unsure, but when her lips brushed against mine, I could feel the hesitation fading. I kissed her back, slow, deliberate, letting her feel it, letting her want it. But just as she began to lose herself in it, I pulled away. She gasped slightly, her eyes widening, realization crashing over her. "I shouldn't have done that," she whispered, pulling back, her hand covering her mouth. "I'm sorry." I shook my head, keeping my expression calm, reassuring. "Don't apologize," I said smoothly. "You haven't done anything wrong." I watched as the war played out in her eyes, the guilt, the confusion, the lingering desire. "But Stanley," she started. But I cut her off. "Stanley isn't here, Carmen." And in that moment, she understood. For the first time, she saw me as the one who was really there for her. And Stanley? He had already lost her. He just didn't know it yet. I finished for her. "And if he was, would he even notice what you're going through?" Her silence was my answer. That moment of hesitation, the flicker of doubt in her eyes, it was the confirmation I had been waiting for. She had crossed the line, and deep down, she knew it. Regret? No, that wasn't what I saw in her expression. What I saw was something else, relief. The weight of years of loneliness, of being overlooked, was slipping off her shoulders. "I don't know what I'm doing," she whispered, her voice cracking as unshed tears welled in her eyes. "I just feel so lost." I reached for her hand, squeezing it gently. "You're not lost, Carmen," I said, my voice low, deliberate. "You're just starting to see things as they really are." Silence stretched between us, thick with all the things we both knew but wouldn't say out loud. She was standing on the edge of something new, staring down at the life she had always known and realizing for the first time that she didn't have to stay in it. And I was right there, waiting to catch her when she finally let go. This time, when she leaned in, there was no hesitation. Her lips found mine, and the kiss wasn't tentative. It was full of quiet desperation, years of loneliness bleeding into the way she clung to me, my arms wrapped around her, pulling her closer, feeling her warmth press against me. And just like that, everything else faded away. No thoughts of Stanley, no thoughts of Rachel, just this moment. The kiss deepened, slow at first, then more insistent. My hands traced the curve of her waist, pulling her against me, while hers gripped my shirt like she was anchoring herself in this new reality. She pulled back slightly, breathless, her lips parted, her eyes dark with emotion. "I don't know if we should," she murmured, uncertainty laced in her voice. I didn't answer with words. I kissed her again, slow and deliberate, letting her feel the safety, the certainty, and my touch. "We're already here, Carmen," I whispered against her lips. That was all it took. Whatever remained of her hesitation crumbled. She kissed me back, deeper this time, with certainty. Her walls were down. Whatever defenses she had left had been swept away, and she let herself fall. We moved together slowly at first, both of us hyper-aware of what we were doing, yet neither of us wanting to stop. As my lips traced the soft curve of her neck, I felt her body arch toward mine, her breath catching in her throat. Her hands slid up my chest, hesitant at first, then bolder, fingers curling into my shirt. I slipped my hand beneath the hem of hers, feeling the warmth of her skin beneath my fingertips, tracing the small of her back. The night unraveled in a blur of stolen moments, whispered confessions, and touches that blurred the line between what was forbidden and what was inevitable. When we finally made our way to the bedroom, the tension that had been simmering for far too long shattered completely. There was no guilt anymore, no restraint. Everything else, the years of neglect, the weight of betrayal, the careful lies, ceased to exist. The only thing that mattered was this. We took her time, slow at first, savoring the intimacy of it. But the longer we touched, the more urgency took over. We had been holding back for too long, and now there was nothing left to hold back. By the time it was over, the room was steeped in silence. The only sounds were our slowed breathing, the quiet hum of the world outside, as if it had no idea what had just happened inside these walls. Carmen lay beside me, her head resting against my chest, her fingers tracing absent patterns along my arm. "I never thought I'd do something like this," she whispered. Her voice was thick, heavy with exhaustion, but there was something else there too, relief. I didn't respond. I just ran my fingers gently through her hair, staring up at the ceiling as she drifted off to sleep. I could feel the shift in her, the realization settling in. She had crossed a line, one she could never uncross, and a part of me relished it. Carmen had been drowning in her marriage for years, and now she had chosen me. She just didn't realize it yet. As I lay there beside her, a slow, quiet satisfaction settled over me. This wasn't just about the physical act, though, of course, that had been inevitable. No, this was about control. This was about turning the tables on Stanley in a way he could never have anticipated. The best part? Carmen had no idea she was just another piece in my game. To her, this was real, a moment born from loneliness and neglect, a connection she had convinced herself was genuine. But to me, it was something else entirely. The weeks that followed unraveled like a carefully orchestrated play. I kept the momentum going, seamlessly balancing my manipulation of Rachel and Stanley while deepening my hold on Carmen. She was completely caught up in me now, and snared without realizing it. And with every text, every glance, every stolen touch, I pulled her further from Stanley. He had no idea, no clue that his own wife was slipping away, that the rift between them was widening with every passing day. Then, about 3 weeks later, we were all invited to another dinner party, a small gathering, casual, friendly. The kind of event that would have felt normal before everything had shifted. But nothing was normal anymore, not after what had happened between Carmen and me. Stanley and Rachel were there, of course, playing their parts to perfection, laughing, mingling, acting like devoted spouses while secretly stabbing their partners in the back. It was almost impressive how well they maintained the illusion. But tonight wasn't about them. Tonight was about Carmen. As conversations buzzed around us, I stayed close to her, careful not to draw attention. We were playing our own game when no one else in the room knew about. Then she caught my eye and gave a small, almost imperceptible gesture toward the kitchen. Her face was pale, her eyes wide, her fingers twitching as she twisted the hem of her sleeve. Fear, or maybe something deeper. Intrigued, I followed her, slipping through the doorway as the noise of the party dulled behind us. The door swung shut, sealing us in a bubble of silence. She stood in front of me, visibly shaking, looking at me like she didn't know where to begin. "What's going on?" I asked, keeping my voice steady, though I could feel the shift in the air. She took a shaky breath, lips trembling. "I don't know how to say this," she whispered. "Just say it." She closed her eyes, inhaled sharply, and then, "I'm pregnant." The words hit like a physical blow. For a moment, I said nothing. The shock rolled through me in a wave, my pulse hammering in my ears. Pregnant. Carmen was pregnant. And it wasn't Stanley's child. I swallowed hard, forcing myself to maintain control, though my mind was already racing through the implications. This wasn't part of the plan. "Are you sure?" I asked, my voice calm measured. She nodded, biting her lip as unshed tears gathered in her eyes. "I took the tests. It's real." A long silence settled between us, suffocating in its weight. Carmen, Stanley's wife, the woman I had carefully pulled into my grasp, was carrying my child. Stanley, oblivious, arrogant Stanley, had no idea that the woman he thought belonged to him was now bound to me in a way he could never undo. I exhaled slowly, keeping my expression unreadable. "What about Stanley?" I asked carefully. She shook her head. "He doesn't know. I haven't told him. I don't want to hurt him." I stepped forward, closing the space between us. "He's been hurting you for years, Carmen," I said, my voice low but firm. She shook her head again, her shoulders trembling. "I can't tell him. I don't know how he'd react." I reached out, placing my hands on her shoulders, steadying her. "Listen to me." My grip tightened just enough. "This is our opportunity, Carmen. Stanley isn't what you need anymore. You know that. He's been neglecting you, treating you like you don't matter. But you do matter." Her wide, tear-filled eyes met mine, her breath shuddering. "You don't have to deal with this alone." I pressed on. "You have me now." She let out a soft, broken sound, her hands gripping my arms as if she needed something to hold on to. "I don't know if I can do this," she murmured. "You can," I insisted, my voice unwavering. "And you will. You don't have to face this alone. You don't owe him anything anymore." She hesitated, her lip trembling, but I could see it. The shift. The realization. Her world had already changed. Whether she was ready or not, there was no one doing what had been said in emotion. And now she belonged to me. She just didn't realize it yet. She couldn't stop what was happening. "I'm scared," she whispered, barely audible. I cupped her face, wiping away the stray tears with my thumb, holding her steady. "You don't have to be scared," I said softly. "I'm here. We'll get through this together." The weight of it all pressed down on us, thick and inescapable. Behind the closed kitchen door, the distant hum of laughter and conversation carried on, oblivious to the storm brewing in this small, quiet space. Carmen was pregnant. With my child. And Stanley? Stanley had no idea. The irony of it settled deep in my chest, sharp and cold. He had taken Rachel from me, stolen what was mine without a second thought. But now I had taken something far more valuable from him. His wife, his legacy, his entire future. The life he thought he controlled was slipping right through his fingers, and he didn't even realize it. Not yet. But he would, because this secret wouldn't stay hidden forever. Eventually, the truth would come out. And when it did, the fallout would be nothing short of catastrophic. Exactly as I wanted it. Carmen inhaled sharply, her hands moving instinctively to her stomach. That small gesture spoke louder than any words. She understood. She was standing at the edge of a reality she could never escape. "We'll figure it out," I told her, my voice steady, unwavering. She nodded slowly, the last remnants of hesitation fading. She wiped her face, her breathing evening out. Okay, that was it. The shift had happened. There was no turning back. For now, we would keep this secret between us, let it simmer beneath the surface, let the tension build. Because when the truth finally exploded, it would break them. We stepped out of the kitchen, slipping back into the noise of the party. Laughter, light-hearted conversations, the illusion of happiness. Stanley's laugh rang out across the room, deep and confident. Rachel stood beside him, her smile bright, her eyes sparkling. They thought they had one. They had no idea. In just a few months, everything they cherished, everything they had built, would be reduced to rubble. I met Carmen's gaze from across the room. She glanced at Stanley, then back at me. There was still fear in her eyes. But beneath it, something darker, something deeper. This was no longer just betrayal. This was a reckoning. And when it finally came, the devastation would be undeniable. And I would stand in the center of it all, watching as everything Stanley and Rachel had built burned to ash. Because trust me, this was only the beginning. The next chapter? It would make this one look like a fairy tale. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel so you don't miss the continuation of this exciting story. There's much more to come. Stay tuned.